Well, I have been a part of the Kansas City School District since I started kindergarten. But in the year that you're talking about, 1971, I was at Bristol School, and I was teaching and loving it because it was the school that I went to school in as a child. And they were talking about integration, and they were talking about moving the students. Kansas City had about 10 schools in Independence, Missouri. And they were talking about moving the students from Independence in grades 3 or 4 to 7 to inside the Kansas City boundary, and moving the students in those schools back to Independence in kindergarten through 3rd. And I remember the discussion and the principal talking to us and giving us an opportunity to make a decision. Do you want to go with the students, because I taught the upper grades, to a school in Kansas City proper, or do you want to move to a lower grade? And I thought, no, these are my children. I want to go with them. And the term was the kids were being bused. And I thought, I want to be bused too. So I ended up going to Melcher School and being an upper grade teacher there. And I was welcomed by the teachers that were in that school. And there were more African American teachers there than were in Bristol. And it was wonderful. And the children were amazing. There wasn't any difference between the children there in that school than the children at Bristol. And many of the children that came from Bristol were there at Melcher, and I got to see them and be part of their lives still. After that, there was a time in which someone talked me into applying for an assistant principal position, and I applied and got the position. And I was packing my things, and the principal came and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm packing my things." He said, "All you need's a cart because you're the assistant principal here at Melcher." I said, "Oh, cool." So that was exciting. And then I moved to a principalship at Mount Washington back in Independence, Kansas City School in Independence. And it wasn't as diverse, but very shortly, the discussion of magnet schools was occurring. And we were all thinking about where do we want to be? You know, I first thought I wanted to be at the math science that was over in the northeast part of this school district. But I also like science. And so I kind of said all of that would be fine. The next thing I knew, they told me I was going to North Rock Creek Cordy, again, a school located in Independence, but part of my school district, Kansas City. And I was told that, I said, "Well, which school, North Rock Creek or Cordy?" Because they sat next to each other. "Oh no, both of them." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." And it was an environmental science magnet. And oh my gosh, we had children applying to come. Obviously, there was some kind of ratio at that time that they were working towards in each of the magnet schools. We didn't have any problem with that. We filled up quickly and had about 600 students. And environmental science meant that you had science inside and outside, got out into the world. The students got along great. They planned things, they did things. The staff was racially balanced. It was just a perfect time in my life. I absolutely loved it. We did a lot of camping with students. And then my boss came over and told me, "You're going up the street to the middle school." I said, "Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not." And he said, "Oh, yeah, you are." And he said, "There's some kind of issue, and we figure that half of those students came from your school, and they will do what you tell them to do." I thought, there's also middle school teachers up there. But anyway, I didn't get a lot of choice, but I ended up moving. And it really worked out real well because he was right. I walked in the door and over half of the students knew me. And I remember them saying to each other, if you do something wrong, she'll help you. But if you lie to her, you're in big trouble. So be sure you tell her you did it and fix it. And so I was there, and it was the same theme, environmental studies. Then my boss, Dr. Ida Love, called me and said, hey, I got a little problem downtown. There's too many things I got to do. Could you come down and help me? So I'm thinking I'm going down to help for a month or two. Well, I ended up being there 3.5 years as her assistant superintendent. And, you know, that I enjoyed being there and working with her, but not like I enjoyed being with the children. And at that point, I retired from the school district. It was exciting because it wasn't like you were just going to go to that school, or you're going to go to that school, or we're going to move you based on the percentages of, you know, of races in each school. It was based on something in your heart. Some of the children liked the performing arts. Some of the children liked the math and science. Some liked Spanish and German. And Mount Washington was going to become a German magnet, and I thought, oh no, I'm not learning German. I'm too old to start another language. And I know the language of science, and so that's kind of how that happened. And it was the parents who participated loved the fact that they had choice, and the children did too. So they came with an excitement. The magnet school program was very positive, and I think sometimes I heard that there were sometimes problems getting into certain schools, but I think people had choices. The thing that bothered me at times is that some parents didn't have the drive to search out the best school for their child as far as theme goes, and I wondered about that, you know. Oh, there was all kinds of bulletins and things that were put out, science magnets. I mean, there was lots of choice and lots of publicity. I think parents knew what there was available. I'm not sure even today that everyone, you know, I have had parents that don't have the initiative or drive to ask the questions, and I think that's the children that I worried about. It could be that, I mean, when I heard that there was an environmental science magnet school, I had to do a little bit of looking at things to figure out what's the difference between, you know, science, you know, physical science, biology, all of that, and environmental science. So I had to do a little bit of digging. My granddaughter went to the Montessori magnet, so I did a little looking into that. I worked with fantastic teachers and principals, and it was always positive. Like when I had that choice to stay at Bristol or go to Melcher, you know, I was just trying to figure out different things, and when I got there, I was completely welcomed. And it wasn't like, well, where'd you come from? It was like, come on, let's get on board. So that was cool. I think the children enjoyed, there's two parts of that. There's the integration that happened before the magnet schools, and then the magnet schools. And I think in the beginning, the children were curious, and they were interested. We had some parents that, in Independence, that had a little bit of issues at that time. But the teachers, the children, were all on board and excited about the opportunities. I can remember my first week at Melcher, this little girl who had not had a white teacher was fiddling with my hair. And I said, what are you doing? She said, your hair it's just the same. She said, My family, and we can have different hairdos all the time, but you guys, she said, as a white person, your hair is boring. It's just the same every day. So I would try to do something different. I would tie it up in a ponytail or put little curls, and she would laugh. And so curiosity, knowing she may had not had many white people in her life, works both ways, and she was trying to explore, and I was trying to figure out how I could make my hair look as good as hers. In Independence, it was Van Horn was the high school. I'm trying to think. Nowlin was at that time built, the middle school and the elementaries. When they were told that we were going to do this busing, for some parents took their children, and there was a couple of private schools that started up, and because they didn't want to participate. And as a lifetime resident of that area, it kind of made me mad, because I knew what was going to happen was going to be better for their children. You want your children to have experiences. You don't want them kept away from the world. You want them to see what is going on. And like I volunteered to, I almost begged, I want to go. And the children that I had in my class at that time, many of the parents asked me questions, and all of them went. You know, they were excited, and I think it should have been everybody that way. And sometimes I would drive by that school and make a frown on my face thinking, what did they do to their children? They took them away from an opportunity. But I don't know the numbers, but I don't think the percentage of those that pulled their kids out of public education and did that was significant. Well, I grew up in Independence, and that was an all-white community. And I could remember in high school, I had a black family move into the neighborhood by me, and the girl and I became friends, and we had a wonderful summer. And we went to school, and there was about 20 people that were going to do a sit-down thing in the hall and say they weren't going to class. And I'm not at that time, I wasn't as talkative as I am now. I went out and they said, what do you mean? I said, black? No, she's Guamese. Well, she was black, and she came from Guam. And they said, oh, okay, we'll go to class. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with people? And so I think trying to be part of that, when I went to Melcher, and the staff and students were, diverse. If I went into the staff lunchroom and two of my black colleagues were sitting here and two white colleagues here, I'd go sit with the black colleagues. I think I helped bring people together. I didn't see any animosity, but I'm thinking, we have more in common. And so I think the relationships I built with colleagues, and of course with children, to this day I still get a chance to run into someone at a grocery store or someone, and they'll say, oh, do you remember I was in your class at Melcher? And or we were in the environmental science magnet, and now I have a job with the EPA or whatever. Well, I got to be part of it. My parents adopted me, and I'm not really ever been completely sure what country, nationality, but my parents also were very inclusive. They would take me places, and there would be opportunities and people of all cultures, and I never heard any despairing remarks from them. And when I got to go to Melcher, my parents were excited about that and wanted to know what was going on. And you know, my mom came up and took a picture of me in the class one time, and you know, and I think guys seem to help guys, and sometimes women don't have that opportunity. And so I've always been one to try to help women progress in the roles that they have. And a lot of my assistant principals have been different nationalities and cultures, ethnicity, and trying to get to be part of getting them to be part of everything. And it's just the way I am, the way I live. I have my best friend is not a white person, even though I have some white friends. But Kansas City helped me grow a group of friends that's my best buds. Well, all students were expected to be successful, and there wasn't anything separate about that. I think that since then we've done a better job in education about checking to see who knows what, to be sure that they are successful. But everything was expected of all students. We had the curriculum that we were supposed to use for the district, and all of us participated in it. Now, at North Rock Creek Cordy, when I was principal there in environmental science, and we were taking the MMAT test, our school for 3 years straight had the highest science scores in the whole state, because of course we were a lot better than everybody. That's what I told them. And I think because of the experiences that we expected, never saying you can't do something because you don't have the money to do it, you don't have, you're a girl, you can't do that, or so the expectations were high for all students. Well, I think it just broadens your world. You know that you're part of a larger thing, and you're not separate from anyone, and that you can do whatever you want to do in life. You just have to set the goals to do it, and you can do it. I think instead of our community being separate, there's people of all ethnicities in all parts of our city, and I think that's a good thing. I went over to my mom's house the other day. It's up for sale, and I wanted to go look at it, and there's a black family that lives next door, and I thought, how cool is that? You know, we can live anywhere that we want to. I think that's a hard one, because I really don't know exactly what is going on in each of the schools in the district. I do think it's important that that all schools have a general expectation of what they need to know. When I went to the school district that I'm in now, every school was doing its own thing, and you weren't progressing as fast. When you're all doing your own thing, the principal can't talk to another principal and have conversations about what to do to improve. So I think taking the state standards and all working towards students being successful, and the whole idea of response to intervention that is now in schools, knowing what a child doesn't know, and being sure that you're still teaching till they know that. Back when I started teaching, I taught something, they got a grade, we moved on. And I think now with this opportunity with RTI is I teach you learn, we work together. I find out that 6 of you don't know something, and then I figure out a way to keep working with that 6 on that so that we all achieve everything. I think it was a wonderful thing. I loved the fact that I got to be part of the busing that from Independence to Kansas City. The schools that were chosen in Kansas City were on the line, the city line, same as Independence, and they, instead of being separate, they became one. And I think that was wonderful. The magnet schools was incredible. To be able to have something that a child is interested in, and to tailor your teaching and connect it to that, whether that was math or the arts or a foreign language. I think it was super, and I'd like to see more opportunities like that for all children.